We are live. Hi, folks. Chuck Holton here, back at my home in Panama, finally, after about 2 months away on the road. And wouldn't you know it, as soon as I leave, things. And so, believe it or not, I may actually be back on a plane tomorrow to go back to Israel once again. And if that sounds exciting to you, I would say you should just try it sometime. Fly for 22 hours, get home for 24, and then turn around and go right back. I've had to do that several times in the last year, and it is not fun. Although I have to say the trip home really went pretty smoothly. Wouldn't be bad at all. I mean, it wasn't bad at all. So I want to talk about what's happening, the breaking news that we have from Israel, that the CIA has warned Israel and the IDF that there may be an attack by Iran within the next 48 hours. So we're hearing, again, from our own agencies that there may be an attack. Now, I have to say our intel agencies have been pretty spot on for the last several years. They've done a pretty good job. I mean, they were saying all along in 2022 that Russia was going to invade Ukraine, and nobody believed them. All the pundits, all the experts said there's no way, it's not going to happen. I was there in Ukraine 3 weeks before the invasion kicked off, and I didn't even controlled by Ukraine. I was on the line of contact, and there was direct fire coming from the occupied areas, but the people in that area where I was, like in Kramatorsk and Bakhmut and all the places that have been just pulverized into dust now, the people who lived there really didn't believe it was going to happen either. And they were just going about their lives. So since I figured, well, these people probably know better than anybody, and if they don't think it's going to happen, then I don't think it's going to happen either. But boy, we were all wrong, that's for sure. And the CIA was right. So they had some very good intel. Just in January, the CIA warned Iran that there was about to be a large terror attack on them. And of course, they didn't believe it. Those guys didn't believe it. But let's see here. They're saying they're losing me. Am I back? Okay, looks like I might be back. And wow, I've even got, this camera is, how about if I dumb my camera down and do this? So lower the rate of my camera and maybe that'll help. Now, let me just start over where I was, okay? Let's see here. All right, maybe that's a little better. Back. Okay, good. I'm good now. Okay, good. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, so anyway, what I was saying is that the CIA has been pretty accurate with what it's been warning about over the last couple of years. It was accurate when it called the impending invasion of Russia, on Ukraine. And it was accurate in January when it told Iran that they were about to have a big terror attack. And it was accurate in just a few weeks ago when it told Russia 2 weeks before the terror attack that happened there to look out for a terror attack specifically on concert venues. And Russia, of course, didn't believe them, but the United States has done pretty well. And so I think that says something about our signals intelligence capabilities. I don't think it says much about our human intelligence, because the United States has kind of gotten rid of most of our human intelligence. So they don't have as much HUMINT as they used to. But SIGINT apparently makes up for a lot, and they are picking up chatter, and they're learning how to read that chatter. So I'd say that if the CIA says that it is likely to take place, then it's likely to take place. We need to take them seriously, and Israel needs to take them seriously. Now, speaking of taking them seriously, the United States is taking very seriously the reports on the killings of these aid workers. Apparently, they just had a phone call between Benjamin Netanyahu and Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was very upset about the killing of these 6 or 7 aid workers in Gaza. Now, of course, Joe Biden has never been to combat. Joe Biden doesn't have any idea how difficult it is in the fog of war to ensure that everything that you do is going to go just perfectly. And war, by definition, war is incredibly complex. It's an uncontrollable situation. So it's crazy for Joe Biden and the Biden administration to be armchair quarterbacking every step here. But of course, it's a terrible thing what happened. And the Israelis are taking responsibility for it. They are investigating, and they are taking steps to ensure that it never happens again. But stuff happens, okay? Now, if there is an attack by Iran, I mean, what the news articles are hinting at is that Iran itself is going to attack Israel. That most likely is not going to happen. Iran does not want to be dragged into to instigate a war directly between them and Israel, because they must lose that war. I mean, when I say they must lose, Israel cannot allow itself to lose that war, and Israel has nuclear weapons. So unless Iran has got a bunch of nuclear weapons that we don't know about, well, then it's not gonna go well. Oh man, it says it's freezing again. I thought we got that fixed. Let's try this. Okay. So, okay, let me go back and repeat. I will. I just have to apologize for the connection. We have been doing everything we can to make the connection better, and it just isn't. So sorry about that. Anyway, so I want to say that the Biden administration doesn't have any idea how complex and difficult it is in a combat zone. There are very few people in the Biden administration who have ever been in combat, and they are already leaning towards supporting the Palestinians and Hamas in this whole thing. and Iran. But what I was saying is that if Iran were to attack, it's likely. It's just not likely that it would do that because it would lose. What it's going to do is try to get all of its proxies to step up their attacks on Israel, which means more rockets out of Hezbollah in the north, more rockets from the Hashabi in Syria. Most likely we'll see more rockets or drones or something like that coming out of Syria against U.S. bases there. That's a very big possibility. We are already seeing a little bit of that. Now, the articles that I've been reading were saying that there may be a swarm of drones coming out of Iran itself. If that happens, we're looking at very serious, oh my gosh. Hello. I don't think Iran is. I don't think Iran is censoring me. I just think Panama's internet is okay. So that's kind of a huge deal. Now let's talk about very quickly the GPS disruptions that are happening across Israel. When I was there, whenever we got to the north or to the south, all of a sudden your phone would start messing up and the GPS wouldn't work. And so it's like it would show that you're in, if you're in the north, it would show, if you looked at your GPS coordinates, it would show on your map that you were at the airport in Beirut. If you went to the south and looked at your map, your Google Maps or whatever, it would show that you were at the airport in Cairo. Well, apparently now they have started, jamming the GPS signal all over Israel, which probably means that they are taking steps just in case somebody does fly a whole bunch of drones at them. Because these drones that Iran makes are GPS guided. And so that would be interesting if Iran were to fire a bunch of drones at Israel and they ended up hitting the airport in Beirut and the airport in Cairo. So they're just taking whatever steps they can. Apparently they've canceled all leaves for their troops. They have called up some reserves to man the air defenses, and they've put all of their Air Force on its highest state of alert. So that's something that we haven't seen since the early days of the war. Today we also saw a barrage of missiles come out of Gaza. That hasn't happened since mid-January. So, I mean, we're talking about, fairly sizable barrage of missiles. And that is interesting because it just makes me wonder where they came from. Did they come from northern Gaza? Did they come from Khan Yunis? Did they come from Rafah? Any of those things is really bad and kind of shows that the IDF doesn't have a complete handle on Gaza yet. And again, this is Hamas making Israel's case for it, that it needs to continue their fight in Gaza. So they need to go into Rafah. They need to continue to clear Khan Yunis. They need to continue to clear Gaza City because, holy cow, if a barrage of rockets is still coming out of Gaza after all this time, well, so either somebody just got really lucky and managed to hide some rockets in the areas that the IDF has already cleared and then sneak in there and fire them, or, which, I mean, that could happen because they had a lot of rocket launchers actually buried where they would have to, out in the desert in Gaza, where they'd have to go out in a farmer's field or something and dig up the openings to the rocket launchers and then fire them off. And so those things would be virtually impossible to find unless you knew they were there. So, that's a pretty big deal. But to have the number of rockets that are coming out of Lebanon right now has gone up over the last month. There was a great graph that came out from Sarit Zahavi and her, oh shoot, I just spaced on the name of her center up there in northern Israel. But they put out a lot of really good data. And she sent out a graph the other day that showed the month-over-month increase of rockets coming out of Lebanon into northern Israel. And it has gone up for sure. They've actually had some deaths in northern Israel from those rockets too. So they've had at least 3 rocket attacks out of Gaza today. 2 rockets hit Sderot, where we were just there. Connie and I just drove by there, I don't know, a week or so ago. They didn't hurt anybody, but they did tear up some roadways. The rest of the rockets fell out in farmers' fields and stuff and didn't do anything. So we're seeing daily attacks now almost from the West Bank. And we're not talking about rocket attacks. We're talking about actual, stabbings, shootings, and rammings. So today, if you go look on my website at chuckholton.com, do we have any new updates on the hostages, Alexander? I do not. All I've heard is that that Hamas is putting out that since their people are starving, that the hostages are also starving. Now, I also put up a video on chuckholton.com today of a marketplace in Gaza that does not it doesn't look like the people there have no food. There's plenty of food in that marketplace, but let's hope that they're not starving the hostages. It wouldn't make sense for them to do that. It does make sense for them to threaten to starve the hostages, but it wouldn't make sense for them to starve them to death because the hostages are very valuable to Hamas as a bargaining chip, and they don't want to kill their bargaining chips. So there's a good chance that they're bluffing when they say that they're starving the hostages. I'm sure they're not getting fed steak and lobster or anything, but I doubt that they are, they're starving them to death in there. It just wouldn't make sense for them to do that. Okay, so there was an attack out of the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. Listen, I know people, especially if you're in Israel, people get wrapped around the axle if I call it the West Bank. I understand. I get it. I believe that it's Judea and Samaria. The West Bank is what a lot of people call it in the news and a lot of people around the world call it. So to avoid, if I only call it Judea and Samaria, people get confused and don't know what I'm talking about. So I call it both, the West Bank and Judea and Samaria. I'm not making a political statement by doing that, so you can save your flaming emails. Thank you very much. But I think out of Jenin, there was a guy last night who rammed like 4 IDF soldiers and then drove to a checkpoint, got out of his car and went running at some other IDF or some border police with a gigantic knife, screaming Allah Akbar. And I put the video of that up on my website at chuckholton.com. You can go watch it. The crazy thing about that it was the thing that really stuck out to me, is the guy, the stabber, or the guy that was trying to stab people, he got shot and killed before he was able to stab anybody. But he went sprinting at these guys wearing flip-flops. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't sprint in flip-flops. I would fall on my face if I tried to walk in flip-flops, much less sprint in flip-flops. Flip-flops are they're for showering in, maybe. But not for, if you're going to do a stabbing spree, just a little advice, Don't wear flip-flops. That's a joke, by the way. I'm glad he was wearing flip-flops. It probably slowed him down a little bit. And although he was pretty fast. And he had a very big knife. But the Border Police were faster with their M4s. And that guy took the room temperature challenge there on the pavement at that checkpoint. So I don't know about you. Can you guys run in flip-flops? I can't run in flip-flops. I don't get it. I don't understand. If you're gonna be, serious about attacking people, like, don't do it in flip-flops. Come on. I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, so almost daily attacks coming out of the West Bank. As I was saying on the last live I did from Jordan, the Iranians are trying very hard to get bigger weapons into the West Bank areas, into what they call the West Bank. And I'm talking about rocket launchers and grenades and explosives for roadside bombs and car bombs and things like that. If we start seeing car bombs coming out of the West Bank and Judea and Samaria, that's a turning point. That's a really, really bad thing. We haven't seen a lot of those in recent history out of there. But that's why, I mean, the fact that Iran is trying to pump weapons into Judea and Samaria is why ostensibly the Israelis, they still haven't claimed it, somebody threw a bunch of rockets at the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria the other day and killed 15 people, mostly terrorist leaders. They're very, very angry about that in Tel Aviv. I'm sorry, in Tehran, not in Tel Aviv. And so there have been big protests in Tehran calling for attacks on Israel. There have been big protests in Jordan. I wanted to show you some of those. I'm only going to show you just a tiny bit of this because apparently if I show you too much of this video, YouTube will demonetize the video. So I'm going to put these videos up over at chuckholton.com and you can watch them over there. But just to give you a sense for what that looks like, this is an AP video of big, and you see there the police, those are Jordanian police that are, pushing back against the protesters. And it's like a big deal. They're tear gassing them and everything like that. In Iran, this guy is calling for, now I'm going to read you part of what this guy said. Okay? Now, this is important. Let me go back and find I got to find my Google Chrome. There it is. I want to read you a little bit of what this guy had to say because it's kind of a big deal. I just have to pull it up here. I had it pulled up and I had accidentally closed it. Whoops. We're talking about Donald Trump now? Really? Okay. If you want to talk about Trump. Okay. Yeah, I know it's still kind of buffering a little bit. Do you think the U.S. should be worried about an attack on America as well? None of these guys can attack the homeland of the United States very well. I mean, they could do a massive multi-cell terror attack like we saw in Moscow the other day, something like Mumbai, where they have multiple groups of terrorists that go to multiple places in one city all at the same time and basically do mass shootings. The difference is that doing them in the United States, many places in the United States would have armed people that might be able to shoot back. That's something that you don't see in most of the world. Okay, but so an official from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard had this to say about what's about to happen from Iran, what Iran is about to do. He says, now this is weird. I'll get to that in a second. Here's what he says. In fact, the Zionists are trying, this is quote from General Ramazan Sharif, spokesman for the IRGC. He says, in fact, the Zionists are trying to revenge their defeat in the Al-Aqsa flood by killing Revolutionary Guard generals. But they will get nowhere, and the motivation of our soldiers will be multiplied. Soon we will see deadlier blows to the Zionist regime, and the resistance front will carry out its duties in this regard. So he's threatening retaliation directly from Iran on Israel. That's what he's saying. Well, I say directly from Iran. He says soon we will see deadlier blows. And he does say the resistance front will carry out its duties. I think that resistance front he's talking about may be all of the proxies that Iran funds and not Iran itself. So that would be basically more of the same, more of what we've already been seeing, and not an escalation, meaning Iran would get directly into the war. Now, this is very interesting. Here's what he said, going past that. He said, out of the 70,000 militants that were involved in the Al-Aqsa flood, either as reservists or attack forces, less than 1,500 have been martyred, and the rest are ready to continue fighting the Zionist occupiers. Now, did you get that? He's claiming that there were actually 70,000 terrorists involved on October 7th. Now, then he says that less than 1,500 have been killed. Well, they killed about 1,500 terrorists on October 7th, or in the day or two after that, in Israel. Now, they've since then, according to Hamas's own figures, they've had 6,000 of their fighters killed. So I'm not sure where this guy's getting his numbers, because maybe he's just really bad at math, but 1,500 killed in Israel and 6,000 since then is 7,500, not 1,500. So General Ramazan Sharif might need to go back and do a little remedial math there, to say nothing of the like 300 or so Hezbollah fighters that Hezbollah says that they've had killed. And they've had some Houthis killed for sure. They've had some people in Syria killed for sure. So I'm not sure where he's getting his numbers, but he's not talking for an American audience. He's talking for an Iranian audience, and they're going to believe whatever that guy says, right? Because they don't have any other choice, okay? He also went on to say Netanyahu, with his evil intentions, is trying to divert public opinion to another side, a side issue, now that the world has known the racist nature of this regime. Now, that's just political doublespeak. I mean, I don't know what he even means by that. But speaking of which, there have been some pretty serious protests in Tel Aviv over the last several days by Israelis who are calling for a deal to be struck with Hamas that does not include destroying Hamas. They're basically asking for Israel to agree to lose the war. And they're just saying, bring back our hostages at any price, including the price of leaving Hamas in power so that they can do this again. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but this is what they're saying. Now, let's see if I have some video of that. Here's a little bit of video of the protests in Tel Aviv. They're saying bring back. You see that? Yeah. So Again, I can't show you the whole thing because if I do, they'll demonetize the video. But there have been some serious protests in Tel Aviv. And one thing that's interesting about these protests is that the protest in Jordan, the government of Jordan claims that they are being fomented by agents provocateurs from other countries, like maybe Iran. And so they're like, Iran is trying to destabilize Jordan by sending these people in here to whip up the Palestinians into a frenzy. And they've been protesting in front of the Israeli embassy for like 24 days now. So even longer than since this attack that took place last week in Damascus, Syria. Now, one other thing to note about those protests in Jordan is that the embassy that they're trying to get into and destroy has been empty since like the beginning of the war. So it's the Israeli embassy in Jordan, and they cleared that thing out like in October, and it's empty. So you've got the Jordanian police that are, killing themselves to protect this empty embassy and keep the Palestinian protesters from getting in there and, I don't know, burning it, blowing it up, whatever, putting graffiti all over it, whatever. Am I back in Panama? Yes, I am. I am back in Panama. And, okay, so let's see, wasn't Jordan neutral? Yeah, well, Jordan, One Tired Mama, Jordan has been not neutral in this. They've been one of the most vociferous critics of Israel since October 7th. Basically, everything Israel has done in Gaza, Jordan has criticized. But they've not gone much further than that. They've been criticizing it basically because they have to. If you think about it, more than 50% of people who live in Jordan consider themselves Palestinian. When I say consider themselves Palestinian, what I mean is most of them were born in Jordan. They have Jordanian passports, Jordanian citizenship, but their ancestors came out of what is today Israel. And, Jordan is part of that mandate from 1948. It's about 78% of the total British mandate is today modern day Jordan. So there's a, interesting opinion piece in the Jerusalem Post today that talks about that we should just call Jordan the Palestinian state and be done with it. And all they need to do is they need to say Jordan can retain its monarchy. They're already more than 50% Palestinian anyway. We just need to give anybody that lives in it, like the West Bank or Gaza, the opportunity to do one of two things. They can either move to Jordan and become Jordanian citizens, or they can stay in Israel, become Israeli citizens, and live under Israeli law. And if you break the law, you go to jail. That's it. That's your only two choices. That's what this article is proposing. Now, that's really not going to happen because Jordan doesn't want all those people. They have plenty of room for all those people. Jordan has tons of open space. What they don't have tons of is water. So they would need to do something about fresh water if they were going to take in, 5 million extra people. I mean, that would grow Jordan's population by about almost half again, So they've got 11 million Jordanians there now. And if you added let's say that you took every Palestinian that lives in Judea and Samaria and Gaza and you moved them over to Jordan, that's 5 million more people, at least. So Jordan's not going to go for that. And the Palestinians are not going to go for that, most of them. And so, it's kind of an interesting intellectual exercise, but not much more than that. On that note, did you know that only 2 in 10 Arabs anywhere in the Middle East say that Israel has a right to exist as a nation with a Jewish majority. Let me say that again. Only 20% of all Arabs in the Middle East, both non-Palestinian, believe in Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. So, I mean, what that means is the Palestinians are not going to agree to a two-state solution because they don't want their own country. They just want Israel to cease to exist. Now, 60% of Palestinians say the goal of their national movement should be to work toward reclaiming all of historic Palestine from the river to the sea. Again, I'll repeat that. 60%, 6 in 10 Palestinians say that the goal, that their overriding goal should be to retake all of Israel from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. What that shows you is that these people are not willing to negotiate seriously. They're not willing to be reasonable. They're not willing to be rational. They have one goal and one goal only, and that is to murder every Jew. And so Israel is doing what it has to do in order to survive in a neighborhood like that. I mean, if you lived in a neighborhood where all of your neighbors were not shy about saying they would like to see you dead and your home burned to the ground, you would, and you didn't have the opportunity to move. There's no way to pick up and move. You have to stay there. You would have to take extraordinary measures for your own security. Otherwise, you would cease to exist. So that's that shows that Israel does not have a lot of options there. They have to do what they're doing. And the Biden administration wavering in its support of Israel, they keep coming out and Blinken will give a speech and say, we stand behind Israel 100%. We still stand behind Israel 100%. And then Joe Biden calls Netanyahu and says, if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to change our policy toward Israel. You know, it's like they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. They're trying to straddle the fence. And as I have said many times in the past, this is a very sharp fence to straddle. So it's going to be painful for the United States to try to do that. All right, to recap, for those of you who are just joining us, and I know I'm sorry we've had some connectivity issues, you can go to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, and I'll be talking more about these issues later on. So here on YouTube, go to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, and you can subscribe over there and hit the notification bell and then get notified when I'm about to go live. You can also go to chuckholton.com and you can look at a whole bunch of stuff that I've put up over the last 24 hours specifically on these topics. But the breaking news is that the CIA has come out and has warned Israel that Iran may escalate and attack Israel. There may be a major attack on Israel within the next 48 hours. If that happens, there's a good chance I'm going to be back on an airplane heading back to Israel again, which I really hope it doesn't happen because I don't want to have to get back on a plane already. I just got home, okay? Can you pray at the end? Yes, of course, I will pray at the end, Lisa. So that's the breaking news. As I said, Israel is on its highest state of alert now because of this warning. They've recalled a bunch of reservists. They have started to jam all GPS communications across the country in Israel. That's the first time that has happened since the war began, I believe. I got to Israel on October 9th, so just 2 days after the attacks on October 7th, and I don't recall them ever jamming GPS signals in downtown Jerusalem, but they're doing that now. And that is to throw off any GPS-guided drones or missiles that might be fired at them over the next 48 hours. They have been doing that all along in the North and the South, but this is the first time that they've done that. So they've called up their reservists. They've got their Air Force on the highest state of alert. They are taking this seriously in Israel right now. So we need to pray for Israel. We need to pray protection over Israel. And we need to be, praying that the IDF will be wise and discerning in what they do. And that they'll have unity, because they've already got, like Benny Gantz is now calling for new elections. That breaks with a very long-standing tradition in Israel that they do not have political arguments while they're at war. And I don't know if he's being encouraged by the United States to do that, but obviously Chuck Schumer was calling for Netanyahu to be removed just the other day, and so Benny Gantz calling for new elections while they're at war is a pretty big departure from tradition in Israel, and many people in Israel believe that is not a very good thing. There's a lot of people in Israel that don't like Netanyahu. Don't get me wrong, for a lot of reasons, and Israel was just terribly divided politically right up until October 7th. But Netanyahu is the guy that was in charge when it happened, and he is doing everything he can to lead his country through this, I would say. But we need to pray for unity in Israel right now. All right? So if you have other questions, go ahead and ask them now. And I am going to go ahead and say a prayer for Israel. How long we've been on here? 44, 45 minutes. Okay. So go ahead and ask your questions. Put them in all caps if you don't mind. Makes them easier for me to read. And we're going to pray for Israel. So please pray with me. Join me in beseeching God to stand against evil men. Father God, we just ask you to thwart the plans of evil men. Wherever they are, we don't need to worry about whose side they're on. If there are evil men with evil intent in their hearts, please thwart their plans, Father. Please send your angels to protect Israel, to watch over the Israeli people. I pray that even the Muslims who watch what happens and watch how their missiles fall short, how their missiles miss their targets, how Israelis are able to shoot them down, and how they just continue to lose militarily over and over and over again. I pray that the Muslims and the Palestinians would see and would cry out to you, God, and that you would be found to be faithful to them, and you would make yourself known to them, and that they would just renounce their hatred of Israel. They would learn to forgive, and that Israel could learn to forgive as well. Father, that's very hard for them to hear. It's hard for Palestinians to hear, even our Palestinian brothers and sisters who are Christians. Right now, they're so hurt by the continued destruction that's going on in Gaza. And so, Lord, I just pray that you would give them the gift of forgiveness. And I pray that you would give the Israelis the gift of forgiveness, and that this could end very soon. Father, I pray that you would protect the hostages that are still unsure whether or not they're going to survive this. I pray that you would send them food, medicine, that you would just cover them and protect them, and that you would bring them out of captivity. Give the IDF wisdom, give them discernment so that they don't make more mistakes and kill people that are trying to help. Lord, I pray that you would give their war cabinet the wisdom that they need to make solid decisions on how to tactically and strategically finish this fight so it can be over. And I pray, Father, that you would just put your hand up and stop Iran in its tracks. I pray that you would do the same for Hezbollah in the north, and that this war would end soon. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, folks, thank you very much for watching. I'm really sorry about the connection. We're still working on things, obviously trying to get it better. But stay tuned. Like I said, you can go to chuckholton.com, or you can go to the Hot Zone here on YouTube and follow me over there. I'll be doing more lives as soon as I can get some things worked out with all this. If you would like to donate to keep CBN on the air, you can go to cbn.com and get a tax deduction for doing that. So let me see if there were any questions real quick. Let's see. Can I come to Bogota for lunch? No, I can't come to Bogota for lunch. Are you rationing food? Do you feel unsafe in a time-critical way? I'm not in Israel at the moment. I'm back in Panama, but no, DNYC, nobody in Israel is rationing food. And I did not feel unsafe when I was there. I had my wife with me. And I wouldn't have my wife with me if I felt unsafe there. We even went up to the north, and it just wasn't that bad. This is one thing I'd really like you to understand, because I think many of you get really just bound up with worry and worry for Israel, worry about the danger there. Folks, for everyday people in Israel, they need your prayers. They are under the threat of rockets, but for the most part, it's pretty safe. You know, we just spent 2 weeks traveling around Israel, and I didn't feel very unsafe except for a couple times in East Jerusalem, which is, you know, Palestinian-controlled area. That's a little sketchy. There were a couple other, you know, places we drove through that were a little sketchy, but for the most part, I felt pretty safe. Even in Jordan, we felt pretty safe. But there is a tension in the air. The people there, they've learned to live with it, but they really, I think that it does wear on them. People's tempers are short in Israel. You do notice that after you're there for a while. You know, people driving, just, it's not, you know, oh, if somebody starts to, you know, change lanes because they don't see you, it takes a little beep beep, you know, hey, I'm here, look out. And in the States, you would see that, you know, you'd see somebody beep beep, you know, hey, don't hit me, I'm over here. But in Israel, they will lay on that horn like their life depends on it. Sometimes the driver is Palestinian, sometimes the driver is Jewish, sometimes the driver is somebody else. But man, they road rage like crazy. I mean, just you know, and just really get angry behind the wheel. So I think the stress of living in a war zone comes out in ways like that. But for the most part, people are going about their business, and it's not that bad. So, you know, I will let you know if I have to go back. Let's pray that I don't. I just pray that there won't be an attack, and I won't have to turn around and go right back there. What if Israel ignores Biden? My opinion on options. I think Israel is going to ignore Biden. They are doing exactly what a civilized country ought to do when a mistake is made in war and innocents get killed. They're doing an investigation. They're taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again. They're trying to find out how it happened. They're saying they're sorry. They're even sending emissaries to the families of those that they killed and offering their deep apologies to those people. What else could they do right now? You know, they are doing as much or more than the United States would do in the same situation. And again, for Joe Biden, who's never been to war, to be trying to lecture Bibi Netanyahu, who has been to war quite a bit, about how he should be acting in the fog of combat is kind of the height of, well, hypocrisy, irony. It is ironic, and it's pretty sad. Okay, so okay, let's see here. I'm just looking through here to see if there were any more questions. Who is going to attack within 48 hours? We don't know who's going to attack within 48 hours. Iran is threatening attacks, but the way that they worded it they worded it in a way that it makes it sound almost like they're saying it won't be us that does it, it's going to be our proxies that does it. I don't know. I just don't know. If Iran is the one who actually attacks, that will be a big deal. That will be a major escalation in this war. Can kids play outside there? Yes, they can. Jessica, I see kids running around playing. If you go out on a Shabbat, you'll see families pushing baby carriages, walking around, enjoying the nice day, licking ice cream. You'll see people walking their dogs, going for a run. So it's they're making the best of it, and like I say, it's not as dangerous as you might think it is. So I'm not sure what Chris Donahue is on about there. Let's see. Talking about road rage. Is Egypt helping? Not really, not in a very significant way. Egypt is not. They've donated some aid, I believe, but so far what they're doing is they're basically keeping the gates closed as tightly as possible to keep people from coming in. Where the Temple Mount is now, is that where the third temple will be built? Well, if that is in fact the site of the second temple, then that would have to be where the third temple would be built. But there is some discussion, let's say, over the actual location of the second temple. And actually, we're taking Bob Cornuke with us on our tour to Israel that's coming up in October. We've already filled it, so there's no more slots available. We got 55 people going, and that's a full bus. So if you would like to join me and go on an adventure with me, then send me an email at hotzoneholton@gmail.com and tell me you want to go with us to Armenia. We have 3 trips to Armenia, and each of them have 2 or 3 slots available left on those. And they're going to be adventurous. They're going to be amazing. So we've got one in May, one in June, and one in September. If you want to go to Armenia, just send me an email, hotzoneholton@gmail.com. Okay? Bombs dropped close to family's backyard. They closed the bomb shelters to head to the safe room. They have guns and gas masks. No, they don't really have guns, the little lamb. They have really cracked down on private gun ownership in Israel, and it's very rare now for everyday Israelis to own a gun. Even people who are in the military have a hard time owning or having a gun at home and having enough ammo for it. They're only allowed like very, very limited amount of ammunition, which is very sad. Apparently, Netanyahu is vehemently anti-Second Amendment, according to some of his writings, and that's one of the reasons why the death toll was so high on October 7th. I would submit to you. Okay, so all right. Sometimes routers get clogged up and need to be reset. Yeah, I got a couple ideas. We'll see what we can do. I'm just going to have to get fiber put in here, which we should have done a long time ago. I just never got around to it. Why is Russia putting more troops in Syria? Russia's had troops in Syria, Steve, for more than 10 years. It's a good question why they're putting more troops there. I don't believe Russia is building up troops on the border with Israel in any significant way, and they're not threatening Israel at all. They're not going to do that. Okay. All right. So thank you very much for watching. I'm gonna end it there. I appreciate all of you, and again, go over to the Hot Zone with Chuck Holton, and I'll have more for you soon. So God bless you, and take care.